Hello, my name is Ryan Matthews, and this is the screencast for my game-based learning plan. I'm going to start by quickly walking through the lesson plan and showing the resources related to it. Then we will look at the game part of the lesson plan that it's centered on, and then finish with some of the rationale behind the choices. So, the basic part of this lesson plan is centered on the idea, as to whether or not students believe that the Sasquatch Bigfoot legend is a man, so like a humanoid, a myth, it was a hoax all along, or a monkey, so some sort of new species or less evolved version of maybe an orangutan or a gorilla or whatever. So the lesson is centered on how can we evaluate an eyewitness account as valid and fact-based, and it's a 5th grade lesson that'll probably take about 2 class periods, so 90 minutes. With this lesson, the kind of required prior knowledge will be understanding of, or at least some sort of exposure to the Sasquatch Bigfoot phenomena, the ability to differentiate between fact and opinion, understanding the persuasive appeal of ethos, credibility, and the ability to differentiate between relevant and irrelevant information. The essential questions that will guide this lesson are what makes an argument valid and fact-based, and then how can we use that criteria to evaluate eyewitness accounts. This lesson focuses on 3 standards. The first one is the Common Core State Standard for Literacy in Reading Informational 5.6, which reads, analyze multiple accounts of the same event or topic, noting important similarities and differences in the point of view they represent. So as students are looking through those eyewitness accounts of Bigfoot or the Sasquatch, are they able to see which ones seem more plausible, less plausible, whether there are some common similarities between the stories, or if the stories are so different that there really doesn't seem to be one thing that seems to be the cause of those eyewitness accounts. The next one is the Common Core State Standard 5.8. Explain how an author uses reasons and evidence to support a particular point in a text, and identify which reasons and evidence support which points. So this is all about evaluating argumentative writing, which is what students are going to be doing with those eyewitness accounts. And if a person presents, an eyewitness account of the Bigfoot or Sasquatch legend, then they are going to be persuading you that they saw something that they couldn't explain. So evaluating argumentative writing is the crux of this kind of problem-based, game-based lesson. So lastly, they'll be doing the ISTE Standard Knowledge Constructor. Students evaluate the accuracy, perspective, credibility, and relevance of information, media, data, or other resources. So again, students are going to be given these eyewitness accounts. And Bigfoot is a topic that a lot of students don't really have preconceived notions about, don't really have any strong opinions about. So it is a topic that's novel and engaging that students will be able to really listen to those eyewitness accounts kind of fresh and then make a decision. So they're not really going to come to the table. You may have a couple with any firm beliefs that you need to kind of sway. These are going to be kind of almost like a jury for a case that they've never heard before. And so with that, they're going to be able to really evaluate those eyewitness accounts based on accuracy, perspective, credibility, and relevance. So basically the lesson will start with the Quiz-Is application, where the students are going to take a web-based pre-assessment. The thing that makes this a game is the students all take the quiz together, and then they compete. The game will track everyone's performance and the speed at which they're finishing, and students will constantly be ranked and re-ranked based on how they do. And so there are kind of goals that a teacher can set as a collective class score, and then also can set rewards for the kids that score the highest. And they're constantly competing against each other as they complete this pre-assessment. So it offers, an extra extrinsic motivator to a pre-assessment. Because a lot of times students will just kind of breeze through those, which could be helpful, could be not helpful. But if there are topics that the students are strong in, and there's no need for the teacher to reassess those or spend time re-teaching those, then, why not have that information that then would let the teacher say, okay, I can just jump right in. I don't have to go back and refresh the students. So after the pre-assessment will be taken, the teacher and the students will be able to, in real time, look at the data, and they'll be able to, in real time, look at what questions the students struggled with, what topics the students struggled with, and then kind of see what the next step will be. So to offer some sort of differentiation, there are two options. One, if 60% or less, if the class averaged 60% or lower accuracy, there's a YouTube video which just shows a little bit more background knowledge about evaluating arguments, talks about the fact and opinion, relevant piece, but just builds a little more prior knowledge for the students. However, if the students average 61% or higher, they can move on to step 3, where they'll start with the first part of this lesson, which is what makes an argument valid and fact-based. So with this will be kind of like a discussion as part of the class. So first they'll talk about arguments, commercials, and stories through a think, pair, share type activity that they found believable and what made them believable. They'll do the same process again with arguments, commercial stories that were not believable, or even maybe that they don't believe in anymore. Thinking about the age of 5th grade, Santa Claus is definitely something that comes to mind. A lot of students may no longer believe in Santa Claus. Well, why? What changed their minds about that? Excuse me. So then the teacher will facilitate the small groups of students into basically summarizing, okay, looking at all these things you found convincing, what made them that way? And then looking at all these things that you don't believe, what made them that way? So what was kind of like the criteria that led you to believe and feel certain ways about these different topics? And then with the teacher, the students will kind of establish the following overarching criteria of what makes something valid. So validity comes from having more facts than opinions, right? More things that have been verified and can be re-verified, things that can be measured versus just things based on people's perspectives. It features a credible or unbiased source. This could be the expert opinion, but also could be a news organization that has a peer review process, that has an editorial process that hopefully ensures that an unbiased source is being presented, that it addresses counter arguments, and that it draws logical conclusions. Again, that can be kind of subjective, but there is a clear line between logical and illogical conclusions when looking at a topic. So after having this class discussion and really working through what makes something valid, students are then going to take the next step by doing, okay, well, how can we use that criteria to evaluate these eyewitness accounts? So this process is going to be modeled by the teacher for the following eyewitness account. So this is just an example one. It's actually from Delaware, just to let you see. So the teacher will go through this and using that criteria about validity, decide whether or not that this is a valid Bigfoot sighting. Again, it's not necessarily whether they believe it or agree with it 100%, but based on the criteria, is it valid? So it's kind of helping students. Again, it's not whether it's something that you believe 100%, but it's something that's convincing, which would help them with argumentative writing about topics that they may not agree with. Like you think of a really polarizing topic like abortion. A student should be able to read a perspective on abortion that is different from theirs and be able to evaluate it on its validity. So they may be able to say, I don't agree with this argument, but this is a well-crafted argument. So after doing this, students will, in groups, be creating their own rubrics that will be used to evaluate these eyewitness accounts. So there are group roles that students are going to have, and then project guidelines. So the group roles are there. Students in their small groups will be able to pick what part they want to play in this rubric development process. And in addition to that, here are the project guidelines. So it kind of gives them a nice checklist instead of just a bunch of verbal directions about what they need to do. And the students will be creating their rubric in the Quiziz web-based program. So again, so they can involve that game again, but also because it's going to let them evaluate all the eyewitness accounts collectively at the same time. So they kind of are adding a peer review process to their evaluation. So just to give you a taste, each group has been assigned 4 Bigfoot sightings. These are all different. So we can just see the first one, just to kind of see what are the sightings, just to kind of see what the range is. So for example, group 1 will be looking at an article from the Smithsonian that hopefully they'll recognize as a credible source, talking about how possibly the Bigfoot maybe is related to the Gigantopithecus, which is a prehistoric version of the orangutan that fits a lot of the common tropes about Bigfoot. So they'll be given this one source that's maybe supporting it's maybe a monkey, something related to that. And then they'll get an eyewitness account of a man who claims he was abducted by Bigfoot.
Be a perilous undertaking.
And they'll have to evaluate that. And then here's another one that talks about an expert casting doubt on the evidence that's usually provided for Bigfoot. And so this is maybe supporting the idea that perhaps it's a myth. And then lastly, they'll be given this photograph and the accompanying news article, and they'll have to evaluate, how credible is this? Is this Bigfoot? Could this be something else? And make decisions. But the great thing about the Quiz app is that they will be making these decisions in real time together, and they can kind of see what they're feeling about it. And then once they've done all this, students are going to create a presentation as a kind of like summarizing activity where they're going to share what the rubric was and give a link to the quiz. They're going to share their evaluation of each eyewitness account, each of the 4. And then based on their evaluations, not so much of their own personal feelings, but of the accounts, is the Sasquatch or Bigfoot myth something that's believable? So maybe it's humanoid, or maybe it's something, a primate of some sort, or, is it a hoax? Is it a myth? So the quiz looks like this. I'm by myself, so I can't do a live game. I could start one just so you could see it. There's different options where you can change things. But essentially, they would join using this quiz, and then we would start the game. But I can do a solo game, just so you can kind of see a playthrough of what it would look like. So there's questions about relevant, and I'm just going to kind of click through so you can kind of see. And you can kind of see just based on people doing solo plays right now, I'm being ranked. But basically, after playing through it, students will be given a score based on how well they did, and then that the score can be used to determine some sort of reward to give a little more incentive to the competition. So basically, this lesson was combining the Common Core state standards and the International Society for Technology and Education standards, as well as the use of a game-based learning program to really give students a novel and engaging way to learn about analyzing argumentative writing. So a lot of times argumentative writing is presented in kind of like the pro-con format, but this gives students a problem-based activity to work through to develop their evaluation skills of argumentative writing, develop their comprehension of argumentative writing in a way that is engaging and more exciting for the students. A lot of the game-based learning is informed by constructivist learning theories, where students are learning in social environments and students are learning through their experiences. They're gaining and gathering that knowledge and applying it, and not just being given that knowledge. So that was definitely a big important theory that informed this lesson. There's more there, but you can definitely read through that. But that is basically a summary and a quick preview of the game-based lesson plan about argumentative writing and the Bigfoot Sasquatch legend.